Alright, welcome back to another video. So I'm up here at my off-grid cabin, and if you didn't watch the original build series, there'll be links in the description below to the entire build series. And then I have a wrap-up video that was called How We Built Our Cozy Off-Grid Cabin for $7,000, and there'll be links to that in the description below also. Alright, so we built it, it's been about 2 years ago now, and we've been enjoying it throughout all the seasons of the year for the past couple of years as is. There were a lot of comments in the How We Built the Cabin for $7,000 video about the bathroom situation. So I'm just going to touch on that real quick. We actually don't live real far from here, so it wasn't really an issue that was ever a big problem. But that brings us to the topic of this video. We wanted to make the cabin even more livable for a long-term solution. So we decided that we needed an actual bathroom in the cabin that would include a sink, a shower, and a toilet. So in the spirit of keeping things as cheap as possible and realistic, it is not realistic for us to put in an actual septic system up at the cabin. It's also not realistic right now for us to drill a well, especially since it's off-grid and we don't have any power. So what we decided to do was we decided to install a gray water system to handle all of the sink water and the bath water. And then our plans for the future are to put in some kind of underground cistern to store the water. For now, what we'll be doing is bringing the water into the cabin, and I'll show you how we're doing that in a minute. So I've been really busy. We started by digging a trench to run our gray water system. So I had to cut a hole in the floor of the cabin and do some plumbing. As long as water is moving, it doesn't necessarily need to be below the frost line when it comes to wastewater. So our pipe is about 6 inches underground, and we use 2-inch PVC, and it slopes down to our gray water drain tile field basically. And I used a method that a lot of other people have used, and it's to simply take a 55-gallon plastic drum, cut it in half, and hook the two parts together. And up here by the cabin we have what's called woods dirt. It's really good soil. It has really good drainage from all the years of leaves and decay. So we're actually, even though there's a lot of clay in this area, up here by the cabin there's a lot of good dirt for drainage. So I just put a bunch of limestone down and then put the barrels on top of it, and that is our drain system for our gray water. The next thing I did was I installed a 3/4 inch polybutylene tubing in the ground, underground, and that is just temporary for now. That's going to be for our underground cistern in the future. But I wanted, while I had the bottom of the cabin exposed, because it's not easy to get under the cabin, I wanted to go ahead and just get that pipe put in place. Alright, so I figured since I'm going to be installing gray water piping, I might as well go ahead and install some electric while I'm at it. So I'm talking about 12-volt electric, off-grid electric, battery-powered cabin that we can recharge with solar, which we will be getting to the solar in a future video. We're not quite there yet, but for now what I'm doing is I'm bringing a battery and water with us when we come to the cabin. We can use the cabin with just a battery and water, and then when we're done, we can go home, recharge the battery, and obviously refill the water containers. Alright, so here's what it looks like now. There's where obviously our gray water system line was that you just saw a minute ago. Here's that line for the future where it just comes into the ground. I've got a clean out here for the sewer system just in case there's ever a clog. All right, lights on. So here we are, we've changed the layout a little bit of the cabin, you can see the kitchen is still in the same place. But as you can see, we now have another room built in. So I'll give you a quick tour of the mechanicals. So propane heater, just in case. This is our propane hot water heater. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Obviously, this is our kitchen sink. Changed from the hand pump faucet to a regular one here, as you can see. Let's get on to the bathroom, which I know is what everyone wants to see. So flip on the lights. So here is our new bathroom. So we chose to buy a shower system that comes as a kit. We got this at Menards. You see we have lighting in the bathroom as well. So this shower system we assembled in place. And you can see it's raised because the plumbing is all contained inside of the warm conditioned space of the cabin, as I showed you. You'll notice another kind of interesting thing. So here's this cool little sink that I found. Let's see. But if you look on all my plumbing, there is no traps. There is no trap on the shower. And if we come in here, we look under the kitchen sink, you'll see that there's no trap under the sink either. All right, so one problem you have in a cabin like this that's not lived in all the time is in the winter, everything will freeze. If you have water in a trap, it will freeze and break your pipes. So that's why I use something called a HEPA valve. And what it does is it's a one-way valve that it's installed under the shower right before all the plumbing exits the cabin to go into the ground. Basically allows water to flow one way and gases and water or anything else can't flow the other way. So you don't need traps. It's basically like the trap for the whole building. A lot of old houses had a single trap underground. You could kind of think of it like that. It's the trap for the building. And it's just a gray water system. After all, it's not a septic system. So there's no true sewer smells. The toilet remains a cassette toilet for now. So we could either use a composting toilet, we could use a bucket with a seat on it, or for now, we're gonna keep using the cassette toilet because it's handy, because it keeps the smell down. You can then just take the waste and go dump it in any sewer system, or go dig a hole in the woods and dump it, whatever you want to do. But this is our new bathroom. And I think it turned out really great. All we had to do was pull the kitchen out. It was against that wall. We kind of lost the one window, but I think it turned out great. So retrofitting in the electrical. It's something I talked about in the first video that I should have done. I should have at least run the wiring for 12 volts. So how I did it was everything is contained under here. So you can see that here's my battery right here. This is a Battle Born 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. So like I said, we can take that down and charge it. Eventually when we have solar, it will charge itself. And it comes into a fused circuit panel here. So you can see, this is like something you'd find on a boat. So we have our main power feed. This is our lighting circuit. This is just for our voltmeter. This is our water pump right here. We also have a 12 volt regular socket and a USB charger so you can charge your cell phone. You can see I've installed cabinets or lights under the cabinet as well. So now for the water system. Like I said, we just bring in this large water tank. It's hooked, it's kind of set up like an RV if you think about it. It goes into a pump, into the cold water system. I used all PEX A tubing with expansion fittings to plumb everything. For our hot water, it comes out, runs over to this Camplex setup right here. Now, these units are actually really, really neat because they don't require any electricity. They run on 2D batteries to fire them off. And as soon as the water flows, this kicks on. They're meant to be used outdoors, but they do have a 4-inch exhaust. So you can use standard B-vent pipe like you'd use for like a pellet stove or a, like a hot water heater in a home. And this wall thimble. And you can just vent it direct to the outside. Some people use these without any venting, and some would argue that it's no different than having something like this running, but if you only ran it for a minute, you'd probably be okay. But better to be safe than sorry. Do it right, vent it properly. It still does need a fresh air supply though, since it's a propane appliance. So if you're gonna be using a lot of hot water, you'd probably wanna crack a window. But that's how that works. So let me show you. If I crack the hot water here, you'll see this thing, or you'll hear it fire. You can hear it, and you can see the flame. It'll tell you the temperature of the water. If we come over here, yeah, it's already too hot to touch. So that fast, we have hot water. So it actually works really, really, really well. I'm really pleased with the water setup. Again, our RV pump comes on and off automatically. Turn it on. That quick, that easy. So one other thing we added for privacy, we talked about blinds and thought of all different types of window coverings. We just actually used wood that we have left over from the cabin to build the walls. We made these really neat window shutters. So that easy to close them down. So in the winter, at night, it'll also really help with the draft from these single pane, cabin windows. Just close it up like that for privacy. That's all you have to do. It's very simple. You just use some really cheap little hinges and wood that we already had. I think it worked out really well. All right, so back to the wiring. So how I actually wired this, as you saw, I contained most of the wiring in the new wall that we built to make it easy. As far as the ceiling lights, the wiring goes up through the wall. Then I used a router and routed out a channel in that wood right there where it runs straight up to the ceiling. And then I added this board all the way across the top of the cabin. And it has that same routed out channel to hide the wiring. And added a bunch of light. And what's nice is you have this wireless switch right here. And it also has a dimmer so you can dim the lights in the cabin. And it kept me from having to run a bunch of wiring over to this area here. And that the receiver for it is just mounted with all the electronics over here. So obviously I have a switched for the under cabinet lighting. And then we have a light switch for the bathroom. All right, so that's what we've been up to the last couple of years. Really didn't do much until just recently here within the last few weeks. I decided I really wanted to make some upgrades to the cabin. And that's where we just started going crazy until we got it done. I'm really, really super excited now. Kind of reinvigorated me. I feel like the cabin is much more useful now in a modern world where you would actually have to live up here for any amount of time now that we have running water. Obviously, in the future, like I said, we want to do a large rainwater catchment system with filtration. That way we can store a lot of water up here without having to have a well. We do have spring sources where we can go get water if we had to in like a grid down situation. And again, with solar, which will be coming in the near future, there will be another video on that. We'll be completely
self-sufficient up in this cabin. So really turned out well. Like I said, I kind of just thought of it like I was building out an RV, and I used RV lighting and switches and a control panel and stuff like that. And it kind of works really good for this situation. I'm really impressed with this Camplux, water heater. A lot of other people in off-grid scenarios use these. I haven't actually seen anybody vent it like this though, but that's really the way you should do it, especially in a building like this. I was gonna try to put it under here, but there just wasn't room. There really just was not room with the vent to do that. I didn't feel it was real safe, to put something like that under there anyway. So I don't think it looks too bad out in the room. It just looks like part of what you'd have in a cabin. I did also add a water spigot on the outside, and that's what this is. This is a valve that basically shuts that off so in the winter it doesn't freeze. That goes to the outside. And there's actually a hose connection out there in case you need to spray anything off. All right, so even if we did not have 12 volts and we wanted to be off-grid and take a shower, there's one more thing that we thought of. Obviously, we have our ladder, which is right here. All we have to do is take a container of water, put it up here. And I haven't got to this part yet, but what I'm going to do is just going to drill a hole straight through the ceiling here and put in like a rain type shower head with a little control on it. And all you'd have to do is just open the valve and have a nice gravity feed shower. That easy, with water that you could heat over a fire on the wood stove, or in the summer, outdoors, you could heat it up, or just let it heat up in the sun in like one of those like solar shower bags. So that's kind of like why I thought it would be neat to build the shower into the cabin. Some people suggested, adding on to the cabin and making a bathroom, but there was a lot of wasted space in here, honestly. And when I originally designed it, I designed it just for looks and to just enjoy. And so I really had to think, how I could bump this out. And I thought about, different places, but when it came down to it, I figured I could contain all the utilities and the electric and the plumbing basically to one wall right here. So all the plumbing, as you saw, is just contained to this one area here. And it works, really well. It goes down there under the shower and have access under there. And, all the piping is all contained under here. And it just keeps it clean and nice. And it works out really well. So obviously, since we did the video, the price of lumber has skyrocketed. And you really could not build this cabin for $7,000 anymore. But on the positive side, it is starting to come back down. So don't let that stop you. I encourage you, if you really want to do something like this, just to go ahead and do it. Hopefully, I've given you a little bit of inspiration. Hopefully, you like the update. I really am pleased with how it turned out and how everything works. So I think I'm getting ready to go take a shower and enjoy our new setup. So if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. And I'll try to leave some links in the description for, again, the other videos in the series for this cabin. And then some of the products I used in this renovation. I'll be sure to put them down there in case you want to kind of do the same thing. So until next time, thanks for watching. We'll see you later.